I discovered a small dragon child eating my cybernetic cow's feed. Part 1. Woke up at 5 in the morning, just like he did every day. The sun on 442b rose slowly, painting the sky in colors that Earth people would never believe. Orange and pink and sometimes green, all mixed together like someone had spilled paint across the clouds. He had lived on this colony world for 15 years now. He was a farmer, one of the first to grow real crops in the red soil of this distant planet. His farm was small but successful. He had grain fields, vegetable gardens, and most importantly, he had Bessie 7. Bessie 7 was his cybernetic cow. Half machine, half living creature, she produced milk that the whole colony depended on. Her metal legs never got tired. Her computer brain always knew when she was hungry. And right now, her sensors were telling that something was wrong in the barn. He pulled on his boots and walked across the cold ground. The morning air smelled like rust and growing things. It was a smell he had learned to love over the years. The barn door was open, just a little bit, but enough for someone small to slip through. Frowned, he lived alone out here, 3 kilometers from the main colony. Nobody visited without calling first, and nobody would come at 5 in the morning. He pushed the door open slowly and stepped inside. The first thing he saw was Bessie 7, standing in her usual spot. Her mechanical eyes glowed softly blue in the darkness. She was calm, which meant she did not see any danger. The second thing he saw made him freeze completely. A small creature was sitting on the ground next to the feed bin. It was eating the nutrient pellets that made for Bessie 7, eating them by the handful, shoving them into its mouth so fast that it barely stopped to chew. The creature was not human. That was obvious right away. It had scales covering its body, beautiful scales in shades of purple and dark blue. It had a long tail that wrapped around its legs. It had 2 small wings on its back, though they looked weak and damaged. And when it finally noticed standing in the doorway, it looked up with eyes that glowed like melted copper. It was a dragon, a small dragon about the size of a 6 or 7-year-old human child. And it was clearly starving. Could see every rib pressing against those pretty scales. He could see how thin the arms were, how hollow the cheeks looked. This creature had not eaten a real meal in a very long time. For a moment, neither of them moved. The dragon child stared at with those burning copper eyes. Fear was written all over its face. Fear and desperation and something else that recognized from his own past. Hope, just a tiny bit of hope. The dragon child swallowed the food in its mouth. Then it clutched the last handful of pellets to its chest like treasure. "Please," the dragon child said. Its voice was rough and scratchy like it had not been used in weeks. "Please, human, I am sorry for taking your food. I will pay any price. I will work for you. I will do anything you ask." Did not move. He did not want to scare the creature. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why are you stealing from me?" The dragon child's eyes filled with tears. They were strange tears, almost silver in color, and they ran down its scaled cheeks like tiny rivers. "My sisters," it whispered. "My sisters need nourishment and care. They are dying. I had to find food. I had to try." Felt something twist in his chest. He had 2 daughters of his own, grown up now and living back on Earth. He remembered what it felt like to worry about them. He remembered the fear of not being able to provide for them. "How many sisters?" he asked. 4, the dragon child said. "There were 12 of us when we crashed. Now there are only 5. I am the oldest. I have to take care of them. It is my duty." Crashed, the word hit like a punch. These were not wild creatures. They were survivors, orphans. "Where are your parents?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. The dragon child looked down at the ground. "Dead," it said simply. "The adults all died in the crash. They tried to protect us. They wrapped themselves around us when the ship fell from the sky." A pause. It was not enough to save everyone. Stood very still. His mind was racing. The colony had rules about alien contact, strict rules. He was supposed to report any unknown life forms immediately. He was supposed to call the authorities and let them handle it. But he looked at this small creature, starving and scared and trying so hard to save its family, and he knew he could not do that. "What is your name?" he asked. The dragon child looked surprised. "You want to know my name?" "Yes." "I am called," the dragon child said slowly, as if testing whether this was some kind of trick. "I am female, if that matters to your kind." "It does not matter," said. "I am going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Nodded carefully. "If I help you, will your sisters hurt anyone? Will they attack my colony?" Copper eyes went wide. "No, never. We are children. We do not want to hurt anyone. We only want to survive. We only want to live." Believed her. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was dangerous. But he looked at those desperate eyes and he saw nothing but truth. "Okay," he said. "Show me where your sisters are." Stared at him like he had started speaking nonsense. You will help us, truly." "I will try," said. "I cannot promise anything, but I will try." Stood up slowly. She was even smaller than had thought, barely reaching his waist. Her wings dragged on the ground behind her, and he could see now that they were not just weak but injured, torn in places in others. "Why?" asked. "Humans do not help other species. Everyone in the galaxy knows this. Humans take, humans destroy. Humans put creatures in cages and cut them open to see how they work." The words hurt because knew they had some truth in them. Human history was full of dark chapters. His own species had done terrible things, both on Earth and among the stars. But that was not all they were. "Maybe we have done those things," said, "but that is not all we are, and that is not who I want to be." He held out his hand. "Come on, let us go help your sisters." Looked at his hand for a long moment. Then slowly she reached out and took it. Her scales felt warm against his skin, like stones that had been sitting in the sun. Together they walked out of the barn and into the rising light of dawn. I discovered a small dragon child eating my cybernetic cow's feed. Part 2. The walk to the cave took almost an hour. Moved slowly because she was weak, but she refused to stop and rest. Every few minutes, she looked back at like she expected him to change his mind and attack her. He did not blame her for being scared. If what she said was true, her people had learned to fear humans, and fear like that did not go away just because one human offered to help. The landscape around them was strange and beautiful. Red rocks rose up from the ground like giant fingers pointing at the sky. Strange plants with silver leaves grew in the shadows between them. Small creatures that looked like a mix between lizards and birds ran away as they passed. Had explored most of this area when he first arrived, but he had never found the ravine that led him to. It was hidden behind a wall of rock, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. "We chose this place because it was secret," explained. "We thought if we hid well enough, no one would find us." "What was your plan?" asked. "You cannot hide forever." Was quiet for a moment. "We did not have a plan," she admitted. "We were just trying to survive each day. I thought maybe when the younger ones were stronger, we could try to find a way off this planet. Signal another ship of our people, something." But her voice said she did not really believe that would happen. They climbed down into the ravine, following a path that only could see. The walls rose up around them, blocking out most of the light. It grew colder and darker with every step. Finally, they reached the cave. It was larger than expected. The entrance was hidden behind hanging vines, and inside, the ceiling stretched up high enough that he could stand without bending. Strange crystals in the walls gave off a faint blue glow, enough to see by. And there, in the center of the cave, were the other dragon children. Felt his heart crack at the sight of them. There were 4 of them, huddled together in a nest made of torn fabric and dried plants. They were smaller than, clearly younger and in much worse condition. Their scales were dull and flaking. Their eyes were dim. One of them was not moving at all, and for a terrible moment thought she was dead. Then he saw her chest rise and fall, just barely, and he let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "This is Kith," said, pointing to the smallest one. She looked about 4 years old if you measured by human development. "That is Sorrow, and that is Ember, and the one who is sleeping is called Bright." Strange names, thought. But then again, his own daughters were named after flowers, and that probably seemed strange to aliens too. "Bright is very sick," continued. Her voice shook a little. "She stopped talking 2 days ago. I do not know how to help her." Knelt down beside the unconscious child. He was not a doctor, but he had treated enough sick animals over the years to recognize certain signs: dehydration, starvation, fever, exposure. This child needed real medical care, and she needed it soon. "We have to get her to the colony," he said. His eyes went wide with fear. "No, they will take us away. They will put us in cages. They will." "They will save her life," said firmly. "Listen to me. I understand why you are scared, but Bright is dying. I cannot help her by myself. She needs medicine. She needs a real doctor." "Your doctor will hurt us." "No, she will not." Thought about Doctor, the colony's medical officer. She was strict and sometimes cold, but she had become a doctor because she wanted to help people. He had seen her work through the night to save a child with a simple fever. She would not turn away anyone who needed her, no matter what they looked like. "I know a doctor," he said. She is a good person. She will help you, I promise." "You cannot promise that," said. "You do not speak for all humans." She was right. Knew she was right. He could not control what the colony would do. He could not guarantee that everyone would welcome these dragon children with open arms. But he could try. "You are correct," he said. "I cannot promise how everyone will react, but I can promise that I will protect you. I will fight for you. I will not let anyone hurt you or your sisters." Stared at him for a long moment. The other children were watching too, their dim eyes fixed on this strange human who had appeared in their hiding place. "Why do you care?" asked. "We are nothing to you. We are not your species. We are not your family. Why would you risk anything for us?" Thought about the question. It was a good question, a fair question. "Because you asked for help," he said simply. "And because a long time ago I needed help too. Someone helped me when they did not have to. I think that is what we are supposed to do, help each other, even when it is hard, even when it is scary." Looked at her sisters. Kith was watching with huge eyes, her tail wrapped tight around her body. Sorrow and Ember were holding hands. Bright had not moved at all. "If we go with you," said slowly, "and your people decide to hurt us, we will not be able to escape. We will be trapped." "Yes," agreed, "that is true. But if we stay here, Bright will die, and then maybe Kith, and then the rest of us one by one." "That is also true." Closed her eyes. A silver tear ran down her cheek. "I do not want my sisters to die in a cave," she whispered. "I do not want them to die thinking that no one in the whole galaxy cared enough to help them." Reached out and put his hand on her shoulder. She flinched at first, then relaxed. "They will not die," he said. "Not today, not if I can help it." Opened her eyes and looked at him. Something had changed in her expression. The fear was still there, but now there was something else too. Trust. Just a small seed of it, but it was there. "Okay," she said, "we will come with you." It took time to move the children. Could walk on her own, though slowly. Ember and Sorrow leaned on each other and followed behind. Kith, the smallest, climbed onto his back and wrapped her thin arms around his neck. Bright could not move at all. Carried her in his arms, careful not to jostle her too much. She weighed almost nothing. It was like carrying a bundle of sticks wrapped in silk. The journey back to the farm took twice as long as the journey there. The sun was high in the sky by the time they finally reached the barn. Bessie Seven watched them arrive with her calm blue eyes, making soft mechanical sounds that almost sounded like greeting. laid Bright down on a pile of clean straw. Then he pulled out his communication device and stared at it for a long moment. This was the point of no return. Once he made this call, there was no taking it back. The colony would know about the dragon children. The authorities would get involved. Everything would change. He looked at. She was watching him with those copper eyes, waiting. "No matter what happens," Sid, "I am glad I found you. I am glad I can try to help." Then he pressed the call button and asked for Doctor. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since she crashed on this planet, felt something she had almost forgotten. Hoping. I discovered a small dragon child eating my cybernetic cow's feed. Part 3. Doctor arrived at its farm within the hour. She brought medical supplies, scanning equipment, and a face that showed no emotion at all. That was how she always looked when she was working, cold and focused and completely professional. But saw her eyes widen when she saw the dragon children, just for a second. Then the professional mask was back. "How long have they been like this?" she asked, already kneeling beside Bright and running her scanner over the unconscious child. "I found them this morning," said, "but says they crashed here about 3 months ago. They have been surviving on whatever they could find." Doctor made a sound that might have been anger or sadness or both. 3 months. These are children, starving children, she looked at. You kept them alive for 3 months with no help, no medicine, no proper food. Lifted her chin. "I did what I had to do." Something changed in Doctor's face. "Respect, maybe." "Yes," she said quietly. "You did." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Doctor worked without stopping, treating each child in turn. She gave them fluids through tubes attached to their arms. She gave them medicine for their fevers. She cleaned their wounds and bandaged their injuries. Bright was the worst. Her body had started to shut down from lack of food and water. Doctor had to use a special machine to keep her stable while her body recovered. "She will live," the doctor finally said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "They all will, but it was close. Another day or two and we would have lost her." Collapsed against the wall of the barn, all the tension flowing out of her body. She started to cry, soft, silver tears running down her scaled face. Sat down beside her but did not say anything. Sometimes people just needed to cry. "I was so scared," whispered. "Every night I was so scared that I would wake up and one of them would be gone, that I would fail them." "You did not fail," said. "You kept them alive. That is not failing, that is winning." But the hardest part was not over. Word had spread through the colony about the alien children. By evening, Administrator Holden had called an emergency town meeting. The central dome of the colony was packed with people. 342 humans lived on 442B, and it seemed like all of them had come to have their say. Stood at the front of the room with beside him. The other dragon children were still at the farm, too weak to travel. Doctor was with them, monitoring their recovery. "This is unprecedented," Administrator Holden said. He was a tired-looking man with gray hair and worried eyes. "We have protocols for alien contact, strict protocols. We are supposed to report any unknown life forms to the United Earth Colonial Authority and wait for their guidance." "UECA is 14 months away," said. "These children cannot wait 14 months." "That is not the point." Councilwoman stood up, her face red with anger. "We do not know anything about these creatures. We do not know if they are dangerous. We do not know if they carry diseases. We do not know what they eat or how they think or what they might do." "They are children," said. "They eat food. They think about staying alive, and what they might do is grow up if we let them." The room erupted into shouting. Some people agreed with, others agreed with. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, and everyone wanted to share it at the same time. Stood very still beside. Her copper eyes moved across the crowd, watching these humans argue about her fate, about her sister's fates. "They are afraid," she said quietly so only could hear. "Yes," he agreed. Humans are often afraid of things they do not understand. My people are the same, said. Perhaps all species are. Finally, Administrator Holden raised his hands and called for quiet. The shouting slowly died down. We will take a vote, he said. That is how we do things here. Everyone gets a voice. Everyone gets a choice. What exactly are we voting on? Someone asked from the back. Whether to grant asylum to these alien children, Holden said. Whether to take them in as members of our community, with all the rights and protections that includes. And if we vote no, Councilwoman asked. Holden hesitated. Then we follow protocol. We report them to UECA and wait for instructions. In the meantime, they would be contained for everyone's safety. Caged, said flatly. You mean they would be caged? Holden did not deny it. Stepped forward and looked out at the crowd. These were his neighbors, his friends, people he had worked beside and shared meals with for 15 years. He knew them. He trusted them. But he also knew that fear could make good people do terrible things. I want you all to think about something, he said. Think about why we came here, why we crossed 100 light years to start a new life on a strange planet. Was it just to survive, just to eat and sleep and grow old? He paused. The room was silent. We came here to be better, he continued, to build something new, something that was not weighed down by all the mistakes of old Earth. We said we wanted to be different. We said we wanted to be good. He pointed at. This child watched her parents die. She spent 3 months keeping her little sisters alive with nothing but determination and love. She is brave and smart and strong. And right now, she is standing here, waiting to find out if we are going to prove everything her people believe about humans. His voice grew harder. They think we are monsters, destroyers. They think we cage the helpless and dissect the different. They think we are incapable of mercy or kindness or basic decency. He looked around the room. Are they right? Is that who we are? No one answered. I'm not asking you to ignore the risks, said. I am asking you to take a chance. I am asking you to be the kind of people we always said we wanted to be. Not because it is easy, not because it is safe, but because it is right. He sat down. The room remained silent. Administrator Holden cleared his throat. All in favor of granting asylum to the alien children, raise your hands. Hands went up, slowly at first, then more, counted. His heart was pounding. All opposed. More hands. It was going to be close, very close. Holden counted twice to make sure, then he nodded. 112 in favor, 93 opposed, 37 abstentions. He took a deep breath. The motion passes, the dragon children may stay. Made a small sound, looked at her and saw that she was crying again, but this time she was smiling too. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. We did it, said, all of us together. It was not a perfect victory. Many people had voted against. Many were still afraid. There would be challenges ahead, difficulties and disagreements and dark moments. But for now, in this moment, humanity had chosen hope over fear. And that was a start. I discovered a small dragon child eating my cybernetic cow's feed. Part 4. 6 months passed on 442b. The red soil grew familiar crops. The alien sky showed its many colors, and 5 dragon children slowly learned what it meant to be part of a community. Stood at the edge of Sweet Field on a cool morning watching the sunrise. She looked different now than she had on that first desperate day. Her scales gleamed bright purple and deep blue, healthy and strong. Her body had filled out with proper nutrition, and her wings, once torn and weak, had healed enough that she could almost fly. Almost. Doctor said she would need a few more months of therapy before she could truly take to the sky, but progress was progress. Walked up beside her with 2 cups of coffee. He had discovered, somewhat to his surprise, that dragon children loved coffee. Something about the warmth and the bitter taste reminded them of a drink from there. "You are thinking again," he said, handing her a cup. "I am always thinking," replied. "It is difficult to stop." They stood together in comfortable silence for a while, watching the light spread across the fields. Somewhere behind them in the farmhouse, the other dragon children were still sleeping. They had their own room now, with beds that had built himself. It was not fancy, but it was warm and safe in theirs. "I have been reading your history books," said finally. O raised an eyebrow. "Find anything interesting?" "I found many things," sipped her coffee. "Your species has done terrible things, wars that killed millions, cruelty that makes my heart hurt to read about, destruction on a scale that seems almost impossible." Nodded slowly. He could not deny any of it. Human history was full of horrors. "But I also found something else," continued. "Something that confuses me." "What is that?" "You remember," looked at him with those copper eyes. "You do not hide your dark history. You do not pretend it did not happen. You teach it to your children. You build monuments to your failures. You write books about the people you hurt so that future generations will not forget." She paused. Why? Why keep those memories alive when they cause so much pain? Thought about the question for a long moment. It was a good question. He had asked it himself many times over the years. "Because we want to be better," he said finally. "Not everyone, maybe. Not all the time. But enough of us, often enough, that it matters. We remember the bad things because we do not want to repeat them. We teach our children about our mistakes so they can make different choices." "Does it work?" "Sometimes, not always," shrugged. "We fail a lot. We fall back into old patterns. We hurt each other again and again. But we also keep trying. We get back up. We try again." Was quiet for a while, processing this. Then she said something that would remember for the rest of his life. "My people have a word for that," she said. "For the thing that drives someone to keep trying even after they have failed. We call it fire." "Fire?" "Not the fire that destroys," explained. "Not the fire that burns things down. The other kind of fire. The fire that warms. The fire that lights the darkness. The fire that refuses to go out no matter how hard the world tries to extinguish it." She turned to face fully. "I have been watching you humans for 6 months now. I have watched how you argue with each other, how you disagree, how you sometimes fail to understand each other. But I have also watched how you keep trying, how you keep reaching out, how you keep believing that tomorrow can be better than today." Her voice grew stronger. "When I crashed on this planet, I believed what my people taught me, that humans were monsters, that you only knew how to take and destroy, that kindness from a human was just a trap waiting to spring." She shook her head. "I was wrong, not completely wrong. Some humans are exactly what we feared, but others, like you, are something else entirely. You have this fire inside you. This stubborn, beautiful, impossible fire that makes you keep trying to be good even when it would be easier to be cruel." Did not know what to say. He felt something warm spreading through his chest, something that might have been pride or hope or simple gratitude. "When I am fully grown," continued, "I am going to return to my people. I am going to tell them what I learned here. I am going to tell them that they are wrong about humans." "Will they believe you?" Smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. "I do not know, maybe not at first, but I will bring proof. I will bring stories. I will bring my sisters, healthy and strong and alive because humans chose to save them." She reached out and took his hand. "And I will keep telling them again and again until they understand." Squeezed her hand gently. "That sounds like a big job." "It is," agreed. "But someone has to do it, and I think," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "I think you humans are going to be important, to the galaxy, I mean. There is something special about your fire, something the rest of us need to understand." "What do you mean?" Looked up at the sky where distant stars were fading in the growing light of dawn. "The galaxy is old, very old, and most species by the time they reach the stars have become tired, careful. They do not take risks anymore. They do not dream big dreams. They just try to survive day after day, never reaching for anything more. She looked back at him. But you humans are different. You are young and loud and messy and chaotic. You make mistakes that older species would never make. But you also achieve things that older species would never even attempt. Like taking in 5 orphan dragon children. Laughed. It was a strange sound, like chiming bells mixed with a cat's purr, but had grown to love it over the past months. Yes, she said, like that. A wiser species would have followed protocol. A safer species would have reported us to the authorities and let someone else deal with the problem. But you did not do that. You saw children who needed help and you helped them. Simple as that. It did not feel simple at the time. No, good choices rarely do. Finished her coffee and set the cup down on a fence post. But you made the choice anyway. And that is what I mean by fire. That willingness to do hard things because they are right, even when it would be easier to do nothing. The sun had fully risen now, flooding the fields with golden light. Behind them heard the farmhouse door open and the sound of small feet on the porch. Kith called out, her voice bright with excitement. "Doctor is coming. She said she has good news about Bright." His face lit up. Bright had recovered slowly from her near-death experience, but in the last few weeks she had started to show real improvement. If Doctor had good news, it might mean that Bright was finally out of danger. "We should go see," said. Nodded, but before she turned to leave, she looked at one more time. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for finding me in your barn, for believing me, for fighting for us." "Thank you for giving me the chance," replied. They walked together toward the farmhouse, where the other dragon children were gathering on the porch. Kith waved at them with her small clawed hand. Ember and Sorrow stood side by side, their tails intertwined. And in the doorway, leaning on a walking stick but standing on her own 2 feet for the first time in months, was Bright. Started to run. Watched her go and he thought about fire, about the warmth it gave, about the light it spread, about how it could burn and destroy, but also how it could comfort and protect. Humans had fire, said. Maybe thought. It was time they started using it to light up the darkness instead of burning things down. Maybe that was what they had always been meant to do. I discovered a small dragon child eating my cybernetic cow's feed. Part 5. 14 months after first found in his barn, a ship from the United Earth Colonial Authority finally arrived at 442B. The whole colony gathered in the central dome to watch the landing. Dragon and human stood side by side, waiting to see what would happen next. Held Kith's hand on one side and his hand on the other. Her copper eyes were calm, but her grip was tight. "Whatever happens," said quietly, "we face it together." "Together," agreed. The ship's doors opened, and Admiral stepped out. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a face that looked like it had never smiled. Behind her came soldiers in armor, diplomats in fancy clothes, and scientists with scanning equipment. They stopped short when they saw the welcoming party. "This is not what we expected," Admiral said. She was looking at the long tables covered with food, at the human children playing tag with dragon children in the corner, at Doctor standing next to Bright, explaining something about wing rehabilitation, at the whole community, human and alien, mixed together like it was the most natural thing in the world. "We know," said. "Would you like some casserole? Mrs. makes the best on the planet." The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. There were protocols to follow, reports to file, questions to answer. The diplomats were concerned about precedent. The scientists were fascinated by dragon biology. The soldiers kept their hands near their weapons, just in case. But something had changed. Word of the colony had spread through the galaxy. Other species had heard what happened here. How a small human settlement had found orphaned alien children, and instead of fearing them or caging them or cutting them open, had simply taken them in. It should not have been remarkable. It was just basic kindness, the kind that should be common everywhere. But in a galaxy where first contact usually meant conflict, it was revolutionary. By the end of the first week, Admiral had stopped frowning quite so much. By the end of the second week, she had tried Mrs. Casserole and admitted it was very good. By the end of the third week, she sat down with and for a private conversation. I have been in the colonial authority for 30 years, she said. I have seen first contact go wrong more times than I can count. War, exploitation, mutual destruction. I stopped believing it could happen any other way. She looked at, but you are still here, healthy, happy, part of this community, and your people are already sending messages asking how this happened, asking if it could happen again. It can, said. It just requires choosing hope instead of fear. That is not as easy as you make it sound. No, agreed. It is not easy at all, but humans are good at doing hard things. Admiral almost smiled at that, almost. In the end, the colonial authority made a decision that surprised everyone. They did not take the dragon children away. They did not impose harsh restrictions on the colony. Instead, they declared 442 be a model for a new approach to relations. Other species began to reach out. Some were refugees, fleeing disasters or wars, or simply looking for a better life. Others were explorers, curious about these strange humans who helped those in need. A few were skeptics who wanted to see for themselves if the stories were true. They all found the same thing, a community that was willing to try. It was not perfect. There were misunderstandings and arguments and moments when everything seemed about to fall apart. Some colonists never fully accepted the dragon children. Some aliens never fully trusted the humans. Progress was slow and messy and often frustrating. But it was progress. 5 years after found in his barn, she finally returned to her people. She was grown now, tall and strong, with wings that could carry her across entire continents. Her sisters came with her, Kith, who had become the colony's favorite troublemaker, Sorrow and Ember, who had learned human languages and dragon languages and 3 other languages besides, and Bright, who had become a teacher and was already planning to come back and open a school. The dragon was far away on the other side of the galaxy. The journey would take months, even with the fastest ships, but was ready. Before she left, she stood with one last time on the edge of the wheat field, watching the sunrise. I am going to miss this, she said. This sky, this farm, these people. You can always come back, said. This is your home too. I know, smiled, showing her sharp teeth. And I will come back, but first I have work to do. She had prepared her message carefully over the years. She had gathered evidence, recordings, testimonials, medical records, scientific data. She had collected stories from every dragon child about how the humans had treated them. She had documented every act of kindness, every moment of understanding, every time a human had chosen to do the right thing instead of the easy thing. What will you tell them, asked, when you finally meet your people? Was quiet for a moment, thinking. I will tell them the truth, she said finally, that humans are not perfect, that they have done terrible things and will probably do terrible things again, that they are chaotic and emotional and sometimes impossible to understand. She paused. But I will also tell them that humans have something special, something the rest of the galaxy needs to see. They have fire, not just the fire that destroys, but the fire that warms, the fire that lights up the darkness, the fire that refuses to go out. She turned to face, her copper eyes bright with emotion. I will tell them that humans are not finished, that they are always growing, always changing, always reaching for something better. I will tell them that when humans found 5 starving dragon children in a cave, they did not turn away. They did not follow the safe path. They chose to help, even when it was hard, even when it was scary, even when they were not sure it would work. Her voice grew stronger. I will tell them that the galaxy has been afraid of humans for too long, that we have seen your fire as a threat instead of a gift. I will tell them that it is time to stop hiding in the shadows and start walking toward the light." She reached out and hugged tightly. Her scales were warm against his skin, just like they had been on that first morning when she took his hand and led him to the cave. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for seeing me as something more than a thief in your barn, for fighting for us when no one else would, for showing me what humans can be when they choose to be good." Hugged her back. "Thank you for giving us the chance to prove ourselves." They stood there for a long moment, human and dragon, two species that had learned to trust each other against all odds. Then pulled away and spread her wings. They were beautiful in the morning light, shimmering with all the colors of her scales. "Watch the stars," she said. "When you see them start to brighten, you will know that the galaxy is waking up. You will know that the message is spreading. You will know that everything we built here is becoming something bigger." She launched herself into the sky with powerful strokes of her wings. Her sisters followed, one by one, until all 5 dragon children were soaring above the wheat field. Watch them fly higher and higher until they were just specks against the brightening sky. Then they were gone, heading toward the spaceport and the ship that would carry them home. He stood alone in the field for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. About a starving child eating his cow's feed, about a desperate plea for help, about a community that had chosen hope over fear. The sun rose fully, flooding the world with golden light. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, a message was about to spread. A message about fire, a message about hope, a message about what humanity could be when it chose to be good. And knew deep in his heart that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was about to discover what humans were truly capable of. Not destruction, not conquest, not fear, but something far more powerful. The simple, stubborn, beautiful choice to help those who needed it, no matter who they were or where they came from. That was humanity's fire. And it was only just starting to burn.